We have success. We have success. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who are on camera and those of you who are not, whatever you're comfortable with, we're happy to see your faces and have you in the room. I love a little icebreaker if you're able to get into our little chat in the meeting. And because this community is so global, I love to know where people are located. And I can also start. I'm in Vancouver, Canada.
I'm from San Diego, California.
I'm located in Taipei.
I am in the Philippines right now.
Chicago, Kuala Lumpur, visiting from Singapore. Okay. And Singapore, but I'm from Toronto. Well, Singapore comes up a lot in here. Cool. And for anyone who just joined the room, if I could just ask that you make sure you're muted until the Q&A portion. You can feel free to unmute then. That way we don't have any extra background noise. But let's get things started. Welcome to our April chat this month. My name is Justine Yang. My pronouns are she, her. And as I mentioned, I'm in Vancouver. I am hosting these online webinars for Asian Wander Women. And if you're new to the community, I'll tell you a little bit about it. Asian Wander Women is an online Facebook community group founded by Emily Fang and Ivy Xu. It was created in 2020 during the pandemic to provide resources and inspire female Asians who are nomadic, whether you are working as a remote job, a location independent digital entrepreneur, an expat teaching English in a foreign country, a frequent traveler with a home base, or someone who just desires a nomadic life. Asian Wander Women is for you. We are now a 1,700 plus organically grown community in various cities like Taipei, New York, San Francisco, Toronto, Singapore, and more. So thank you again for joining us. I'm just going to go around the room to our speakers, and we're just going to do some self-intros, and then maybe just repeat again where you are in case anybody missed it, and why this topic today on, I should name that, overcoming familial and cultural societal expectations, why this topic is important to you and why you've joined us today. So let's start things with Francesca.
Okay, thanks, Justine. Everybody can hear me, yes? All right, nice to see everyone. My name is Francesca Chang. I am located in Taipei, Taiwan. I've been here for about 6 years. I am a former attorney who quit the law 3 months after I passed the bar. That was over about 9 years ago now. Now I actually am a life and career coach who guides lawyers, professionals, and creatives, either out of the law or if they're lawyers or just into new careers, and I help them make career changes. And I am also a travel blogger based in Taiwan.
Thank you. I had no idea that your transition from passing the bar and transitioning this career change was only 3 months. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to dive into that more.
Okay, cool.
Tony, let's pass it off to you here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me and thanks for being here. Similar to Francesca, I was a former doctor and I'm still quitting. I kind of like go back and forth a little bit, but after I passed my boards 4 years ago, oh my gosh, 5 years ago now, I'm sort of doing that part-time, but I'm really leaning into what I most love, which is being an artist, a cartoonist, and a relationship coach, matchmaker, sex educator, and advocate for women because I used to be a gynecologist. So, and I'm a nomad. So I just got to the Philippines yesterday and I apologize. I'm like still figuring out my bearings in a new location. I was based in Thailand for a bit, but I've been nomadic for 4 years now.
Amazing. Also quite the transition. I'm sure I'm just going to continuously be shocked as we discuss today by everyone's transitions. Tina, let's hear from you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Tina. I'm located in San Diego, California, and I've been fund employed since August, and just now I'm working on becoming a podcaster. And my podcast is called like Courageous Inner Beast. And what it really means is bringing people to just share their courageous story of leaving their 9 to 5 or like saying no to your family, especially in the Asian culture. That is like hard, saying no to your friend, your parents or your family members of like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I just want to share this platform, this podcast for people to just come in and share their story and feel that whatever they're doing matters and there's a voice to that, and just showing that, yeah, what you're doing for yourself, it's better to do that. And so, yeah, when I quit, I was just like, I don't want to do a 9 to 5. So where I am now, I'm much happier now.
Amazing. And I think that ties in perfectly with the first question we want to get into, which is, can you remember the light bulb moment when you made the switch to follow a different path? So I guess what kicked off your fun employment, Tina?
Oh, well, let's just say I had a slight panic attack one night, and I'm just like, okay, and I had this job for my job for 2 years during COVID. And I was just feeling, I don't like this job. This is not really creative. Like, it's not really creatively challenging for me. It's just admin job. And so finally, when that attack happened, that panic attack, I was like, okay, this is not my life. This is not what I want to do anymore. I need to quit. And I did. And I finally quit. And knowing that there was no job lined up whatsoever, even though I had friends and family worried for me, like, are you sure you want to quit? Like, you don't have any jobs. It's like, it's okay. I have enough savings and everything that I can last as much as I can. And so that is where I am now. And I still have enough, but now launching my podcast, it's much more happier, and I feel more thriving and more happier inside. So that's where it came off of that.
And that's so important, right? Because even though it's scary, right, to make that choice, but even scarier, I think, to realize you've hit a breaking point where you had a panic attack, right? To realize not only like my health is now in danger, my mental health, my wellness is in danger, and I've reached this breaking point. And, we hope that we don't have to get there, but it's sometimes those big moments that really shake us to realize what we need to do. So I'm proud of you for making that choice, because it probably wasn't easy.
Oh, no. I was like, I think I was like prolonging it for so long, but when that happened, I was like, when my mental health priority for me. So when that came into play, I'm like, oh, hell no, never again. So yeah.
Good on you. Francesca, tell us about your light bulb moment.
Yeah, so actually very similar to Tina. And I'm glad that we have a doctor on our panel, because you can kind of confirm or, tell us that these symptoms. And basically I had health issues too, like Tina, but the light bulb moment came specifically when I was studying for the California bar. And I developed this pain in my lower abdomen, and the doctors thought it was kidney stones. Like, that's how bad it was. And I kept going back, and they ran x-rays and did all these tests and they thought it was a UTI, gave me antibiotics, whatever. And then after running tests, which was sadly was very stressful for me, because I was trying to take the bar and I was like, oh my God, I'm spending so much time at the doctors, right? Like, what a terrible mindset to have, right? Like, I can't afford to go to the doctors right now. But basically the doctors determined that there was nothing physically wrong with me. It was just stress. And so that's when I had this moment of, okay, what am I doing this for, right? Is this worth it to, I don't know, please anyone, to please my parents, please other lawyers, my professors, whatever it was. So that was the light bulb moment for me, was just, developing these phantom kidney stones.
Wow. And the body is wild to be able to do that, right? To translate those internal and mental struggles into physical pain. That's really incredible to remember that can happen. Yeah. And to not discount trust your gut, right? Something is wrong. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tony, share your story a little bit, your light bulb moment.
Wow, I didn't know this in advance. Yeah, we're all pretty similar. For me too, it was this just come to Jesus moment for me, and blood hitting a low point in my mental health that had been actually building up for years. As I knew all along that medicine wasn't the right path for me. I actually had pain in my like that brought me to the ER a couple of times in my lower abdomen, and they couldn't find anything wrong. But the real come to light bulb moment for me was when I signed up for skydiving, not thinking like I would ever do this, but I was like, whatever, I don't care about. I mean, you don't realize it until you're in that moment. I was like up in there. I'm like almost wishing for something to go wrong just so I could have like a valid reason that my family could understand, that society could understand, to quit my current path. And then I realized, wow, and I was driving recklessly to work. And I was like, that's how little I value my life right now. Like, what's gotten me here? Like, is this worth it? No, it's not worth it. I had to make a change. But it took years that was 9 years ago. So it took me years to really build up and prepare for the change. And I figured like, okay, I'm going to consciously just finish, take my boards, pass all that, just so I had it as a backup plan. And, like also just to make my family sacrifices worth something. And there's this whole mess still. And my mother isn't really talking to me, but it's been worth it. But yeah, I think it really takes these breaking points to get us to change.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, very similar stories in a lot of ways, but also very different, right, for all three of you. But thank you for sharing that, Tony. I think that also is perfect because you talked about how you're still having a little bit of struggle with your mom, and then a lot of like, even though you had this realization 9 years ago, you did the transition slowly, right? It doesn't always happen overnight. And so I think a lot of that ties into people pleasing. Like you were saying, you wanted to make sure it was worth it. Your family sacrifice was worth it. And we want to make sure we're being respectful, right? And still taking into account all the sacrifices that you made for yourself, but your family made and your community around you. And so let's talk a little bit about people pleasing and how that ties into our topic today. And I know, Tina, you're itching to talk about this one, so I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, people pleasing. Oh my gosh. So people pleasing is really an urgency to please others in the extent of yourself. You are going way beyond what you're capable of, your mental health, your physical health, in regards to making sure that everyone else around you is happy, loved. And if they're angry, like you think it's your fault. But really it's not even you at all. It's they're angry about something else. And then you're trying to fix them so they can be happy again, be loved again. And just, doing everything that you're pretty much until you're spread thin, until you there's nothing of you. And even if someone asks you a question like, do you want ice cream? You ask that question back, do you want ice cream? Because you don't want to say what you want, because what if they don't like it? And then it just goes in a turmoil of like making sure everyone else is happy. Who cares about me? Who cares what I want? I don't matter. And so that's where people pleasing, it's just so sad doing it all the time. It's very draining, very draining. And yeah, so that's what people pleasing is really. And how does it really tied to our topic is, especially in culturally, we want to make sure our family and parents are happy. We want to make sure that everyone else is happy, and that whatever you want, whatever you desire, who cares? Who cares about it? So like all these expectations that we have for ourselves, we have is sometimes too high, too. So overcoming these kind of expectations, familial, cultural, and societal, it's already, there's so much to it that you get overwhelmed by it. And so
Yeah, and I feel like even sometimes it's hard to recognize sometimes that you're a people pleaser, right?
yes,
It's hard to
definitely.
recognize. I often think probably a lot of us show those traits, and it might not be like, it doesn't define you, but you have a tendency to people please, even in small ways. And I think that's definitely something that we're taught through family expectation society. And so it happens quite frequently. I was curious if, Francesca, did you have anything you wanted to say about people pleasing as well?
Yeah. So culturally, like I'd say my experience was a little bit different just because even though my father is a Taiwanese immigrant, he came to the States when he was very young. So I didn't have the traditional like Asian pressures growing up, I guess, because maybe he was a little more Western minded. But what I experienced was actually more this people pleasing pressure from my profession. So, like very, higher education and professions like the law or medicine, there is an air of pretentiousness and elitism, right? There, like it's true. Or academia. I know Dalvin's on the call right now, and so he probably has dealt with that as well. But so in the profession like the law, for example, when I decided to leave, there was so much not just pressure to stay, but just so much like explicit judgment that came from my decision to leave. Like lawyers were all like, what are you doing? You're crazy. I can't believe you're throwing away your legal education. How could you be anything besides a lawyer? And so there was that real pressure for me when I decided like, this is not for me. I would still hear it every day from other lawyers who thought like, oh, like that's really not a good decision. You shouldn't do that. So I'd say that the people pleasing came more from the actual profession that I was in, the people pleasing pressure.
How did you kind of tune that out from all the people in your profession?
It still comes, especially doing what I do. Like a lot of lawyers don't like that I call out the problems with the legal profession because I try to, I try to get clients who want to leave the law. So it's still there. But it's just, I think you just have to again, like really ask yourself, like, do I want to hurt? Do I want to be in pain? Right? Like all of us experience this physical pain, mental pain. Like, do I want to be in pain? Or do I want to deal with, a couple people talking behind my back for 5 minutes? Like, that's just kind of the way I position it. I'm like, this alternative is way better. I don't care. Like if people are going to talk, they're going to talk anyway, right? You can't control that. If it's your parents, there's always going to be unsolicited advice. So that's something you can't control anyway. And I just focused on my health instead.
That's amazing. And yeah, I think growing thick skin is definitely part of it. And then also realizing no matter what you do, you're not going to please everyone. There's always going to be someone who's not going to agree with you. And you cannot control how other people are going to react or feel about certain things. And so it's out of your hands, and that's okay sometimes. And that's just how it is. I see a lot of nodding from Tony. Did you have something to add to this topic as well?
Yeah, I had too many thoughts to add. Oh my gosh, first, oh God, I don't know where to start. Okay, first of all, the people pleasing and societal expectations, I feel like they go hand in hand. It's a vicious cycle because it's like the expectations make us into a pleaser, and then us pleasing gives us more expectations, feeds them, or it makes them think that, that, and it's this, it's funny. Yeah, I had the same thing many doctors saying, like, how could you throw that away? But in my profession, actually, we had the extra layer of, we are serving people. Actually, that's what they groomed us to do. We work over our 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, just until whatever the patient needs, and years of that. And also for me, was my family as well. They're classic first. I'm technically 1.5 generation. I came when I was 3 to the US, and my parents, yeah, they're just, and I would say for some people pleasers, not everybody, but there's a root of that fear of rejection and abandonment that can come when we grow up. And say, if it was my family, their love was conditional and they would treat me very differently. Or my mother locked me out of the house once for misbehaving. So it came from part of that, from fear of losing love, losing safety, really. But the other part also was wanting them to be happy too, like really being able to feel their emotions deeply, and just, wanting to make it okay. And you're right, Tina, it's like the anger, sometimes it's not about us. They're just dealing with a lot of their own stuff, and it's not our responsibility to try to fix or be responsible for their entire emotional world. So yeah, there's so much I can say, but I will stop there.
Thank you for sharing. I think what you said at the end there made me think of, I often think about my mom who is near retirement age, and I think about, okay, what am I going to do when I retire? And I feel like I have all these hobbies and interests. And then when I see my mom I see she's just like taking it easy, you know, maybe watching some TV with her partner on the couch, and that's like their regular nightly routine. And I'm like, don't you want to go out and socialize and do all this other stuff? And I realize it's because I'm putting my expectations on her, thinking like, this is how I would go about retirement. Why wouldn't you want to go about retirement this way? So sometimes it happens the other way too. I'm like putting my pressure on her. I'm like, maybe you should go socialize with your friends. Like you haven't reached out to so and so in so long, and you know, I'm adding pressure on her as well. So that's what made me think of that. So good to clue into that as well.
Oh, if I could add before, it's like hard to know when you are people pleasing because you don't realize it until after the fact. Too, or yeah, you assume other people think like you. But I will say, like, you also can choose the people you want to please. Like you can find people who are more supportive of the person you want to be and the dreams you want to reach. So maybe it's just a matter of changing your environment. And because yeah, nobody's going to be happy with it. Not everybody's going to be happy with your decisions, but you can find supportive people. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Ariel in the chat actually said something. She said, I agree with Tony. I felt like for Asians, the problem is not necessarily people pleasing, but more our societal structure. Asian cultures are traditionally very collectivism driven. We are deeply involved with our family and the environment around us. We do have a question today about culturally, why do we think we are more susceptible to high expectations? So I think these two things go hand in hand. Tina, do you want to kick things off here?
I totally agree with Ariel. It's about community. The community and our family is most important to anything else. Like what we do dictates what our parents are viewed as. So as if we're like children of our parents, how we interact and act with around strangers, their friends, in like if you're in the church community, your Buddhism or whichever religion you're in the community, you need to act the way that, because that's how they will see their parents, your parents be. It's like, okay, these parents, she grew, they, you know, raised them right. They raised them well behaved, not cussing, not doing drugs and alcohol too much and all that kind of things. It's they were raised right. And so yeah, it's all about just being in the community. And that's why I feel like we're more susceptible to high expectations, because whatever we do, it reflects on them, on our parents, on their grandparents, on their aunts and uncles and whoever, like going forth, so forth. And so, yeah, I think that's why it's like why we are highly susceptible to just all these high expectations of meeting this bar that we can't reach all the time.
Yeah, it's like we carry on our shoulders like all of our ancestors and all of our family, like we know that they're just here with us. So we are representative of the collective, right? And so you have to show up a certain way. Francesca, do you agree? Do you think this is why we're more susceptible as well?
Totally. Yes. And that just that collectivism cultural, right? That idea. I totally agree with what Tina said. Like we are viewed as extensions of our parents, right? So we are expected to do what the parents want, what the parents say. I live in Taiwan now, right? So it's like it's even worse here, right? It's not just the parents say it; it's the teachers reinforce it. The ants on the street that see you walking every day reinforce it. So yeah, I totally agree, and yeah, that pressure is real. Like for me, you know, even though again, like I said, like my family's, I didn't grow up with that as strict or as traditional kind of expectations because my dad immigrated to the States when he was quite young. I was still in the first grandchild to ever go to law school or grad school. And so that there was like the grandparents that were like putting a lot of pressure on me too. And then in Taiwan, like, you know, I live very close to my in-laws, my Taiwanese in-laws. So it's all around, it's never ending. And so it's just, that's what I'd say. Like, you really have to just go deep and figure out, okay, I know what everybody else wants, right? It's very easy when you're growing up. You learn that very quickly. I know what everybody else wants, but what do I want? And I think, you know, it's really important to take that time to just listen.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a question that for a lot of people, if you spent time to sit down and ask yourself, what do I want? it's kind of tough to answer for most of us, even those who do a lot of like self-reflection, a lot of journaling, a lot of mindfulness. I think that is always a tough question because Miranda said in the comments, I think it's important to find a good balance in between selfish and selfness. Selfish. Oh my gosh, I'm stumbling over my words. Between selfish and selfness. And everyone has a different proportion. And thank you for whoever just liked that comment so I didn't have to say it again. So, but yeah, it is such an important reflective question to sit down and just ask yourself for a moment, what is it that I want separate from everything else, right? Separate from all the other external voices. Tony, did you have some additional thoughts to add on to culturally why we're more susceptible?
Yes, I completely agree with what everyone else said, the collectivism and sometimes the lack of choice too. If we think about our ancestors, they that had to just do whatever they could to support the family. Financially, they had to take whatever paid well, and they didn't really think about what do I want. And we really do have such a luxury and privilege now that we get to stop and think about, okay, what am I passionate about? What is good for my mental and physical health? And sometimes I still feel some guilty, like survivor's guilt about that. But I know that that is honoring them. I mean, for me, what helped break out of that and stop seeing it as selfish versus selfless and finding the balance is like, truly, if I'm able to, it is honoring them. It is better for them. Otherwise, if I'm just keep on giving to them, I'm pouring into their cups, I eventually burn out. And then I'm just useless, can't help anyone. But if I take care of myself and fill my own cup, then I can overflow and just have a more balanced way of giving out to others. So I think reframing and then ultimately trying to zoom out and seeing the big picture. But it is hard, especially if they had to listen without question to their ancestors. And then it's like, you're definitely stirring up trouble as a cycle breaker, or just saying like, no, you know what, this system doesn't work. Like, why, like, hasn't anyone stopped to question this before? And then just a piece outside of culture, but like gender wise, I think for women, there's a lot of expectations to do it all as well. Now that women are working, it's like, do that and be super mom and be everything to everyone. And I think there's a little more pressure of that to keep down your own voice. But I know that's changing now for the better, which is great.
Yeah, you brought up some great points. Like the world is evolving, right? The world is ever changing. And so expectations are ever evolving. To be expected to do and behave the same way that you were supposed to 20 years ago is ridiculous, right? So that needs to be taken into account for sure. And then because I used to be a flight attendant, something you said just made me think of always put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. You have to take care of you first. It's number one. So that's always, always important to keep in mind. I would love to do a little highlight reel. I make it sound fun, but maybe it's not a fun highlight reel, but I would love to hear about like the top comments that you think of when I say, what types of expectations and pressures did you hear from your friends and family over the years? Some like outrageous things you've heard or the things that really stick out in your mind. I'll start with you, Tony.
Oh,
unless I caught you off guard.
Can I pass for now?
Yeah, that's fine.
I have one.
Yeah.
So and it's not something I've heard, but again, I coach a lot of like Asian American first generations. One of the clients that I was coaching, he was a lawyer and he really did not want to work a government job because he was such an entrepreneurial minded person. And he said he had the hardest time leaving that government job because his mom just kept saying to him, "What will I tell my friends when you quit?" So that was like the real, like, yes, parental pressure, people pleasing, and it was making it really hard for him to, listen to himself and do what he wanted to do. Did that answer your question, Justine? Was that what you were looking for?
Oh,
okay. She lost audio, but I hope that's what she was asking. Yeah. Tina, did you have any other thing?
Yeah, for me, I think if anything, would a lot of expectations and pressures is like, you just had a job. Why did you quit your job? It was so easy. Just sit there and just do nothing. You take a nap and then just So why did you quit your job? And also like just go to school, make sure you go to school and don't skip class, and just having this pressure of constantly asking, like my parents still ask me to this day, it's like, so are you gonna get a job? Are you going to? It's like, it's already been 6 months. Are you gonna get one? And I don't have the heart to tell them where I am now, because my parents tend to, want to protect me. So like they're already thinking of the future of like how it will not work. And so it's just like all this pressure of making sure that they're happy and that like whatever I'm doing fits their bill, and that all they wanted is just to be stable, to have a stable life, to have, I guess, the American dream, what people say, like house, kids, and all the shebang that you have, but that's not the life for me. And they still do it to this day, even asking me about, like, for example, sometimes I'm also very stubborn and goal oriented and like going against the grain. And sometimes my parents are like, why don't you just listen to me? I know best. We know everything, because our parents, they taught us what we're supposed to do. And so, yeah, all these expectations, pressure to just to listen to them, because they know best. And so,
And I think that can be a really conflicting feeling too, what you brought up, which is, your parents tell you things because they love you, and everything they say and do is from a place of love and wanting to protect you. However, it doesn't always align with what you need to hear and what you're doing. And that can be really tough as well. I know that for me, my mom has always been like more hands off, which is really nice. I would say she's not like traditional Asian tiger mom, and definitely more like westernized in her mindset. And so a lot of the pressures I felt growing up, I actually applied on myself. I have no idea where they came from, probably societal pressures. But I remember I was the one who was trying to reach for the A plus in every class, right? It wasn't because my mom was asking me to, but it's because I really, really wanted them. I don't know where that came from. Really self-driven kid, I guess. But definitely you feel pressures from other places as well. But yeah, always realizing that like to this day, my mom and I are quite close. But sometimes she'll say something and you don't always get along with your parents, even if you have a good relationship. There are moments where you snap at them as well, and you're just like, oh, stop being so annoying. But you have to like come back to that reality of, okay, wait, no, they're saying this because they love me. And it also reminded me of another thing my friend said recently, which is sometimes people love you in the ways, what was it? Sometimes people show you love in ways that aren't the ways that you want them to, but it doesn't mean that they don't love you. And so keeping all those things in mind. I think I cut out with audio for a little bit, so I didn't know if I missed something that Tony was about to say before I cut in.
Oh, no, I hadn't shared yet. I was trying to clarify, is it the specific expectations or the outrageous comments that we're sharing? Or both?
Whichever you want.
Okay. Yeah, definitely agree. I like this quote. I don't know who said it, but parents know what's good for you, but only you know what's best for you. So the things that they are trying to get us to do, yeah, it makes sense. Stability, having a job. For me, they really pushed marriage and kids. And it's like, I'm trying. We have the same goal, but I'm not going to just settle just to not miss my window biologically or any of that, but they see it as, no, you need it, stability. My relatives still try giving me red envelope money when I visit them. I'm like, no, gosh, I'm 34 years old. I don't need this anymore. Like, I've got good money to take care of myself anyway. But my mom has said, yeah, many things. When I did work full time after passing my boards in medicine and finally made the salary that she wanted me to make, and she was like, why don't you get a big house, or why don't you become a director? Like, it just never was enough for her. So I felt like she just kept raising that bar of expectations. And I just was like, yeah, this is why you're never going to be happy anyway. So I'm not going to keep making myself really unhappy just to try to please you. But in terms of how she went about it, some of her outrageous comments, she has no filter. She's called me a loser, a failure, when I'm nomad, a hobo with trash and or she called me trash with flies buzzing around me. So I know it comes from love, but it still is hurtful. And yeah, I'm still working through that. But I did finally set boundaries and just said, if you can't talk to me respectfully or with a certain way, I'm just going to remove myself from the interaction. So, but yeah, I know deep down it's because they care and they love us. Oh, the worst thing, not the worst thing, one thing that she twisted it around, she's like, because I was like, I'm doing something, I'm not hurting people. And she's like, you're hurting me because blah, blah, blah. Like, well, will I tell my friends? And, you know, like also like, I'm worried about you traveling and safety and stuff. And I just, it's like so hard, right? Because it's like, yes, and I'm doing everything I can to stay safe, but also it's like I'm not any safer in the U.S. Honestly, the car accidents and politics. It's like you just got to live with a baseline level of uncertainty in life. But yes, anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
anywhere can be dangerous. It doesn't really matter where. It could be anywhere. But yeah, sometimes I'm just piggybacking. It's like sometimes just parents can just be very unfiltered, and their words could hurt a lot. Like sometimes, like with my mom, or how we use our money is different. And so I have like 3 fur babies. Like they're literally my kids. And I like spending money on them all the time. And my mom there says like, why are you spending money on them? They don't need it. Or like if they need to go to the vet, don't go to the vet. That costs money. Just use this medicine human medicine for them to use. And it's just like how we think is just so different. And there's so many. My mom is also very unfiltered too. She says whatever that comes to her mind, and said that I'm, no, like I know best. Just hear what I say. The unsolicited advice. She goes on and on about that, but it's just, yeah, all these expectations of like differences and just saying whatever that goes in her mind and out. It's hard. Like I had to also cross boundaries too, where she still doesn't understand that completely, but we're trying.
Yeah. And honestly, it's the most cutting when it's from your parents, right? The people that are supposed to create this safe space for you and this comfort for you. So I can definitely empathize that that's really, really difficult. And speaking about safety, I think a lot about like psychological safety, right? If you don't feel safe around your parents for whatever reason, that's a great reason to set boundaries for yourself. It's definitely necessary. That made me think of how mental health has been so different. Like the topics and conversations around mental health have changed so much, and how maybe you'll agree with me, but like my mom for sure doesn't believe in going to see a therapist. Right? And so I'm sure a lot of your parents are the same. And it's really interesting because I think because we have access to better mental health care and we are living in like a different generation where it's so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like not, what's the opposite of frowned upon? Someone help me here. It's like
Encouraged.
it's encouraged. Exactly. It's encouraged. And so we have set ourselves up in a better place to build strong and thick skin, right? But it may be difficult and conflicts with how we're brought up and how our parents view things. Yeah, those are my thoughts on that. We are nearing our Q&A portion. If anyone else had any like final thoughts before we get there. Otherwise, I will open up the floor for anyone who either wants to like hop on and turn on your mic and ask a question, or if you're more comfortable, feel free to just type it in the chat. But we wanted to leave like 10 minutes here at the end just to hear from you folks who are joining with us today, and any or all thoughts or questions that you may have about the topics we're discussing today, or if you want to get to know any of our speakers more, the floor is yours.
Hello.
Hi, Mars.
Hi. I wanted to know if we have any panelists who has a child, or is everybody childless at this point? Because I think that really plays a lot, into being able to make, the kind of choices that we're making. Like it's like we're really taking advantage of the fact that I would assume a lot of all of the panelists and most of the audience are childless. So, just being able to, make decisions because of that, I think is huge too.
Any parents in the room today?
I am child free. But that is, yeah, I agree. Like that, my decisions are different because I don't have children. And that's another topic of people pleasing, right? Like my in-laws do not like that I am child free. And they've made it very clear, but that's also something that I've had to kind of just, as a woman, right? Like we get so much pressure from that, but that's something that I've had to really listen to and think about for myself.
Right. Because I can also relate to that a lot. I mean, this year I went into the path of fun employing too. And one thing that made me decide to do that was, what the hell? Like, I'm child free right now. Maybe in in a few years I won't be. And like this is really an opportunity to seize. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great point. Like, a lot of decisions are driven based on your surroundings, right? So whether you are with a partner or you have kids, like your certain and unique situation will dictate what kind of choices you can make for yourself. And so I would say similarly, I'm making a move. I'm moving to Taipei in August, and I'm only making that move. I'm excited too. I'm only making that move now because I am fun employed at the moment. I've been fun employed since last July. And I've been thinking about moving to Taipei to study Mandarin properly for many, many, many years. But there was always an excuse for why I couldn't. It was either, I have a great job right now, they're not going to give me leave. I have a promotion coming up, I could be making more money here. Life is so stable. I have a partner right now. Like, there are so many things that come up in life. And finally, it has felt like the right time, being fun employed and single and ready to just drop everything and go. But again, those are my very unique circumstances. I think if I had fallen into the old pattern of traditional mindset and got a job right away, I wouldn't be moving to Taiwan in the summer. For sure, I wouldn't be. Yeah. Did we have anyone else who had any questions? Oh, Tony.
I wanted to say in response to Mars, definitely having children is something to consider. I mean, I would love to have a child. I'm not there yet, but I do know plenty of people. And the way I see it, first off, it's not necessarily limits you in the ways people think. I know I've met many nomads who are single parents and they're bringing their kids, or if they're lucky enough to be partnered, they're bringing their kids along, they're world schooling them. The traditional education system, how good is it anyway? But, it presents its own challenges. And are we teaching kids to really be curious about learning, or are we just teaching them to jump through these hoops just to please an external system? So I'm really all about just challenging what we've done. So children are not necessarily limiting, but I do say they do add, like, it's financially, we will probably value more financial stability, but if this isn't too offensive, I know many of my friends who've left medicine and they've had these enormous debts, like $500,000 in debt, and you just set it up. These are the payments I'm going to pay back. I'm going to split it up over the 30 years. And I see it saying that I'm going to set aside money every month for childcare payments. So I think it's just an extra thing that we can factor in. And I think we shouldn't let it limit our choices and from us being our authentic selves.
Love that. Thank you. I think that's a great addition. We had a couple people actually join last minute here, just in time for Q&A. If anyone jumped in just to hear from our panelists specifically, if you want to get to know anyone more. Yeah, just curious if there are any more questions out there. While we're waiting for questions, something came to mind. This year, this like past little year and a bit has been my time of discovering non-traditional pathways of making income and living life. And I think those are more and more common these days, as you can see from all of our panelists. And I think for me, it was still scary. Like I still, some days I'm like, maybe I should just apply for the 9 to 5. It would be the path of least resistance, right? I could just go do that and have stability and make money and do the thing. But then I think when I go to apply for the job, when I'm looking for the jobs, I have an ick. Like in the pit of my stomach, I have this feeling of ick, and I'm like, that's not what I want to be doing, not where I want to be right now. And I think that feeling is really important to recognize as well, to know that it's going against my values deep down. Did any of our panelists try anything else as you were navigating to find your way to this non-traditional lifestyle? Like, did you try other career paths and other forms of income? I would love to hear that.
I actually did the same thing where I think so when I quit my job in August last year, I think for some time I didn't have any income. Oh, actually, thankfully, like I don't know, it's like the universe talking or something, but I applied for Rover. Rover is like a pet sitting where you do dog walking and pet sitting, and I just love being around animals. Like one of the main things I just love. And for some reason, when I quit my job, someone asked me to dog walk, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. I quit my job, and then I have something else now to make income, even though it's not like a full-time job. I generated income over time. I'm still doing it now, and I love it because I see all types of animals, cute dogs, cute cats, and hopefully I'll see some exotic animals too. But right now it's just them two. But even while I was doing Rover over since July, there was a time like you same thing as you, Justine. I went online to apply again because I got the pressure from friends and family. What if you just do 9 to 5 for like 4 months, 3 months? It's okay, just a little bit to get stable again. And then when I tried, I just have the sinking feeling of like seeming like I don't want to do this. I don't want to look at this. And then even when I look at the description, I get really discouraged and just blah, like just didn't really want to do it. And so I let that go because I'm pretty much what I'm doing is doing what people telling me I should do versus what I really want to do. And I was still discovering what I really, really wanted to do. And so finally now I'm able to have this foundation for myself. But it took a long time to where I am now. So yeah, so I can definitely relate, Justine. It's same.
Yeah, not a great feeling to try to apply for jobs when you have no heart in it, no heart whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Francesca, I did see you nod when I asked the question of like, what other things did you try out before finding your way to career coaching and weaning people away from law?
Yeah, so I pivoted into 5 different careers after leaving the law. Like sales and marketing, recruiting, freelance writing. I mean, I did everything because I was experimenting, right? I was just looking for what makes my heart happy. I know it's not law. It's got to be something else. And so I just kept pivoting and just remarketing myself into different careers. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that, like, when you do make a huge career change, like whether it's leaving law or leaving 9 to 5, I think one way you can deal with that, like, your nerves or feeling so scared about it, is just remember that every change you make is temporary anyway. So I'll give the example, like for me, I haven't had an employer for 3 years, right? I've been doing my own thing and career coaching, but I am now actually looking for an employer, just because of my circumstances right now. Like I do think that temporarily going back to a 9 to 5 is what I need, to supplement what I'm doing. And so again, it's always changing, right? It's like sometimes you might have an employer, sometimes you don't have an employer, sometimes you're on your own. So just remember, every change you make, it's going to be temporary anyway.
And that's a great call out. Nothing in life is forever.
Mhm.
And nothing is black and white either. You're allowed to change your mind, even if
Yes.
you can stick to your convictions and say, you know, I don't want to work for the man. I'm going to do me right now. And, you know, that's okay. But if you want to make that change and go back to corporate life for a little bit because it makes sense for your situation and your time in your life right now, that's what you should do. You should just do whatever fits for you, right? We do have a question here from Ariel. If we do have time, we do.
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Ariel. I'm full-time digital nomad. So currently kind of just touring the top nomad destinations in the world. But when I started this journey a year ago, I did have a hard time kind of make peace with my parents. We used to be really good friends, I would say. But I've seen the relationship kind of deteriorating because they are not supporting my journey. So I want to ask, you know, the panelists on anyone on the panel or anyone on the call, like if you have a similar experience, how did your parents perceive your desire and decision to travel and nomad, and how do you deal with that?
I wanna say Tony might have thoughts because she is fully nomading.
I just feel like I said a lot about it, but yeah, it's a great question. And I think I'm still dealing with it. Thankfully, I think just giving them time. And thankfully my dad is willing to talk about it a bit. It's hard. I mean, I think it's, yeah, focusing on yourself, that this is what's true for you, and that they might not see it yet, but you will get to a point later on where you can honor them in a way that they would understand. I think that's what's helping me get through this rough time right now. But yeah, it's really hard. And I guess being okay thinking of like temporary distance is sometimes good for the overall relationship. But yeah, not a great solution.
I think the only thing that I would add is maybe taking solace in the fact that maybe building out your like chosen family and your community around you to find support in those places as well, because sometimes your blood family isn't always going to be on your side, unfortunately, and they're just people too. But yeah, having like that chosen family to support you is really important too. And I know that can also be difficult while being a nomad, but just trying to find those people who are in your corner. Thank you for asking the question though, Ariel. We are
add to just with the distancing part, I think just if I know it's hard, but if we can just kind of being the most loving version of ourselves and most mature, like if they are, I mean, someone likened it to like if they're having a temper tantrum about it, like give them the space, but like don't add to it. Like I don't try to escalate when my mother is being that way towards me. It's just kind of like, no, I love you. We can work through this. Like I'm here when you're ready to talk. She didn't talk to me for nearly a year, but now we're sort of talking again, but not about anything super deep. So, but I think it's like it takes two, right? So just trying to be your highest self with that, I think that'll help the dynamic, hopefully, overall.
Yeah. At one point, I was even thinking about, if there's some sort of therapy that bridges the gaps between my super Asian parents and myself, because I feel like for me to talk with them, the conversation is not rational anymore. They becomes very emotional, and then they have admit that if it's some other people's daughter choosing this path, they probably wouldn't, be so much concerned just because I am their daughter, and then they get very involved and emotional about this. But the problem with that approach is that there's not a lot of, I guess, a professional exists that kind of can speak to the both sides. And I feel like for my parents, they would trust someone coming from their culture background, versus, I just show them, hey, here's another example of an Asian Wonder Woman who's traveled around the world, they yeah, it's I feel like it's not convincing enough. I almost feel like if there's like a kind of Asian like a parent support group for Asian Wonder Woman, that would be interesting.
Hey, I'm sure that is a group that many people will join. So we can make that happen. We can make that a chat in the group for sure. Because yeah, there are so many other people who are probably in a very similar situation to you who can relate and offer their support. We do have one more question before we wrap things up. I see a comment from Dalvin, and I'll ask it first. Do you perceive any differences in judgment between male and female members in your families? And he prefaced this with being the lone male in this meeting that he thinks that he is. I am actually curious to hear from you first, Dalvin, because based on our conversation today, did any of that resonate with you or not resonate with you because you're a male versus our female experiences?
Well, personally, as you know, a male, I feel like I have a lot of similar experiences to what I've heard from all of you. So I was wondering, like specifically from a female perspective, are there any like existential differences between, you know, what you have to navigate through in terms of what, you know, males and females in your family expect of you, vis-a-vis like what I've experienced, where, you know, we're expected to be like heads of households, you know, especially if you're like the oldest son, they put most of the onus on you to be like a kind of a provider, right? Somebody who takes on the traditional roles of like being an older brother, being a father, et cetera, et cetera. So I was wondering if that's any different from a female perspective.
Yeah, Tina, go for it.
So in my family, we're very, at least on my mom's side of the family, we are very women are the one who are the head of the household.
Yes.
All the women are the ones who are taking charge, making sure that all the kids, all the husbands are set to go and let's do this. And we're meant to do everything and anything and everything by ourselves. And if the man needs to, it's mainly just for physical help. Everything else, like we tend to do it all the time. And also me being the oldest as well, I didn't get to have that kind of role of like being the woman of the household because I have a disability. And so my siblings had to be the head of the household and just taking care of everything. And my brother, like he's only a few years younger than me, but he had to take care of everything, take care of me, because I was a very oblivious child growing up. And so there was a lot more pressure on him to take care of things than me because of my disability, because I was pampered, making sure I was taken care of. So like there's that difference of like for what was supposed to be in the woman in my family, but my brother was the one who took that pressure instead of myself.
I see. Well, Tina, to piggyback off your comments, I'm actually also a person with a disability. And in a way that has, you know, changed certain expectations that my family has had for me. But personally, I don't feel like I'm expected to be, you know, any different of a good Asian son, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, like, being a person with a disability, like what other like fears and anxieties do you have, specifically, you know, having to do with that as you embark on like a more nomadic life, let's say?
I mostly to try to like say that I'm still enough, you know, because growing up, my whole family, well, mainly my mom, like she's just protective and making sure that I'm normal and mainstream with everyone and making sure that I have friends. But this is the back of my mind all the time, like I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not physically enough to do anything, or even like in intellectually, like too, it's like I feel like I struggle a little bit too, but I don't know if just my own self or is it involved with my disability.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes I have these anxieties and like stress of can't even hold a bowl. You know how like in Asian culture we hold a small bowl and you eat it with rice? I can't even hold a
Right.
bowl. I have to
Right.
put it on the
Okay.
table and eat it
Sure.
all the time.
Sure.
And just having that stress and anxiety from not able to do it and seeing everyone holding it, it makes me
Mhm.
sad. But at the same time, I'm like, it's fine, it's okay. And so I just try to be okay with it and
Mhm.
just live my life as is. And the thankfulness, my disability is pretty minor. So a lot of people don't notice it, and some people do. And then just like, oh, I didn't know you have it. I'm like, yeah, I do. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both. I feel like that's a whole other topic we could dive into as well. Living with whether visible or invisible disability as well, and navigating this world we live in. But thank you for everyone for joining us and for having these rich discussions with us. They're so important, and I love hosting these, so they're wonderful. Thank you to all our panelists for being here and for the great questions from all of our guests today. That's it for today. So we do this once a month, and we hope we'll see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.